Hey kids, welcome into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. Running a bit behind today, but hey, that's what I do. We welcome you in on a Tuesday afternoon. It really is a beautiful fall afternoon here in the Valley of Happiness as Penn State gets ready to take on Illinois. Noon kickoff at Beaver Stadium on Saturday. And certainly appears that Sean Clifford will not be ready to go for the Illinois game. Of course, the bigger question is will he be not just available, but will he be able to play, effectively at Ohio State the following week? Obviously, no word on that just yet. James Franklin, a little coy, but did say, the quarterbacks, Clifford's not going to be getting the snaps in practice this week, which leads you to pretty firmly believe that
that's something he would say normally, though. So I don't know if it's, he's usually so defiant on giving any kind of information on injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, very unusual. He's not completely transparent this one time around.
Now, we don't know if it's somebody from some certain newspapers and different people who jump the gun and do a lot of stuff and try to be the first person to announce it, but who knows? I will not be surprised Saturday 14's dressed out there. I don't know. You know what I mean? I just don't.
I'll be surprised to be honest with you.
I'm with you. I guess I'm with you, but I'm not. You know what I mean? I don't even know what the hell it is. If it's a rib, a kidney, a collarbone, you're hearing everything in the world right now. So, we live here, we don't hear anything correct. Yeah. We just hear whispers like everybody else. So, and it goes right into the whole, okay, we're this time next Tuesday, me and you are going to be sitting here answering the same phone calls from people all weekend and from home and about and fans and this and that. Hey, it's Clifford playing, and we don't know. And we will know next Saturday, I guess. So, interesting to see what's going to happen this Saturday now, who's going to be playing, getting snaps, and starting out.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting to see several things on Saturday. Obviously, if in fact Clifford doesn't play, who does get the starter quarterback? And this is one of those things where I think if you're James Franklin, you're walking a little bit of a fine line here in that. Again, you truly cannot overlook anybody. And I know it was the first game of the season. I know Nebraska's not lighting the world on fire, but that win by Illinois over Nebraska still is in the back of my mind.
Is it really?
As well, just as, listen, if you are not, and we've talked about it before, that anybody in this conference, if you are not dialed in, right? Penn State, if it's focused on this game, regardless of who's quarterbacking, Penn State wins. There's just a lot more talent on the field. But if, as a collective group, let's get ready for Ohio State, and you take this for granted, you could find yourself in some trouble here on Saturday. It's not that Illinois roster is devoid of talent.
Yeah, you're right.
And I do think it's a good coaching staff that they have together right now for the Illini. So, I'm not predicting any problems. I think this is a mature enough team, and I think especially coming off the loss and having a couple of weeks to prepare here, that yes, Penn State will take care of business against the Illini as
you're not ready to go.
Everybody is expecting on Saturday.
We saw it Saturday. If you're not ready to go and you're not ready to strap it up on a weekly basis, you will get jumped by a team like Purdue and just beat the snot out of you. I.e. Iowa this past week. They had a little bit of a hangover. We know that from a big win over us and stuff like that. But, you got to take into account the physicality of the game they played against us. So
yeah, and to be honest with you, I wasn't shocked. I didn't predict it, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I knew that was coming. I wasn't shocked that Purdue won. I was shocked at just how thoroughly Purdue handled Iowa. It was 24-7, and truthfully, if you watched it,
I watched the whole thing.
It really wasn't that close of a game.
They called a touchdown back.
Yeah, Purdue was heads and shoulders on that day. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you that Purdue overall is heads and shoulders above the Iowa program. I'm just telling you that game, that day, I mean, it wasn't close. Purdue was clearly the better team that day. And it does present now some interesting questions moving forward. Because for the Big Ten Conference, the bad news is here, because I had some people asking me, well, I think Booch and I were talking about it last week too, but I've had some other discussions on, how you'd like to see the season play out. We talked last week about Michigan State, what helps Penn State more overall in terms of the result of that game. Here's going to be the problem is now it is so top heavy in the East versus the West. That loss on Saturday was devastating to the Big Ten West because you now took what was clearly the marquee program in that division. I mean, and nobody else even close. And again, it wasn't just that they lost, it was that they got throttled by a lower tier team. Lower tier this season, I'm talking about in Purdue. I mean, I had a losing record going into that game. So that now, several things. One is, how does this season finish up now for Iowa? Because I do think the potential for an absolute collapse is there. And we kept talking about, listen, they have nobody left on the schedule. And in terms of ranked teams and nationally, respected programs this season, that's true. But you're telling me Minnesota's not chomping at the bit, Nebraska's not chomping at the bit here for an opportunity to pile on here with the Hawkeyes. I mean, as much as I thought Iowa could lose a game and maybe even two down the stretch, and I did think it was possible, I wasn't predicting it again. I thought they would run the table. But now I'm not sure I was going to be the representative for the Big Ten West in the Big Ten championship game. And even if they are, if that Purdue game ends up being the only loss for Iowa, it's still a huge loss. And I'm not sure Iowa, even with an upset in the Big Ten championship game, gets into the college football playoffs. Again, it's going to depend on how a bunch of other things play out. But I don't think a one-loss Iowa, for example, is going in over an undefeated Cincinnati. I don't. That loss to Purdue, again, it wasn't just a loss. It was a 24-7 beatdown. And it's later in the season. I think the committee, if it came down to, now obviously you'd have a quality win then to end the season over the Big Ten East opponent. And that will factor in, and I understand that. I don't know. I'll bet it ends up being very close. I think an undefeated Cincinnati team with that win. And listen, part of this depends, how does Notre Dame finish up? How does Indiana, which had a good win, how does it finish up? I mean, there's factors that are still in play here that we don't know to state anything definitively. But I think it is a really, let me put it this way. I think now it is a really challenging path for Iowa to find its way into the college football playoffs. Really challenging. And I'm seeing more and more of the national, and for whatever it's worth, and it's not worth any more or less than my ridiculous opinions, but I am seeing more and more national projections that are not including a Big Ten team in the college football playoffs. Now, what I suspect the thinking is that, listen, these teams are all going to knock each other off, which is entirely possible. And that, what I think they are doing is looking at the potential of Alabama beating Georgia and you having two one-loss SEC teams, and do those two teams get in over a one-loss, both of those teams, the second of those teams get in over a one-loss Big Ten champion. And again, to me, it's just there are a lot of factors that we don't have the information on yet to weigh in. But yeah, I do think that is a possibility now. Now, part of this also is, does Oklahoma win out? Because that Oklahoma State game, Oklahoma State is looking very good. And that's the other question. If Oklahoma State wins out, beats Oklahoma and wins the Big 12, again, a one-loss Oklahoma State team versus, depending on who the team is in the Big 10. I will continue to say, and it's a huge if, but if Penn State wins out, I will tell you Penn State is going to the college football playoffs. A one-loss Penn State team with the resume at the end of the season in particular, but the overall resume. But you will then have wins over ranked opponents in Ohio State, Michigan State. They'll all be ranked. Exactly where, I don't know, but they are all going to be ranked when Penn State faces them. And presumably, at least two of them will likely be top 10 teams when Penn State faces them. And I'm just telling you, with that resume, if Penn State wins out, if Penn State is the Big Ten representative, then the Big Ten does have one of the four teams. Now, if a Michigan or a Michigan State loses to one or the other and then beats Penn State, and then Ohio State loses to Penn State and then beats Michigan. I mean, there's a lot of variables again in play. Obviously, Michigan and Michigan State still have a chance to finish the season undefeated. In which case, again, they too would be locks for the college football playoffs, in my mind, at least.
This is what happens when your conference plays itself instead of playing all the patsies on the other side of the conference like the SEC does.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it right. I mean, they're built towards the playoffs and the national championship. So I get it. I understand it. You can't tell me there's a better division of a conference in the country than the Big Ten East right now. 4 top 10 teams and one half of a conference. That's insane. So, I mean, it's just going to be exactly what had happened for the last 40 years before we joined the Big Ten, and that was just you just eat yourself every year. The Big Ten would just cannibalize itself all the time. And we're going down that road right now. I mean, even if we all go through, I mean, I'm saying in the East, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, round robin, everybody loses a game and wins 3 or 2-2. I mean, what happens? And it's just going to be mayhem for the last few weeks, in a good way, in an awesome way. But if anybody can run that gauntlet and win all 4 of them, well, I guess the last 6 games of the year, congratulations, you are well deserving of going to the college football playoff. Very well deserving. And then you had to beat Iowa to get back in there. So, again. So if Michigan, just say, even say Sparty. Even Sparty goes undefeated right now, right? They go to the Big Ten title game. They're number 3 in the country. Iowa probably jumps to number 10, just by moving up and staying undefeated. You think that Iowa has a 10, winning the Big Ten title over and having a second top 4 victory wouldn't go? I can see what you're saying. I totally see what you're saying. And, it's not like this is week 6, and we have a lot of scenarios that could work out here. Oklahoma State, all the Big Ten East. There's a lot to be determined by all this. It's a good thing. I mean, I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah, it is going to make the stretch run of the college football season, I think, as fun and interesting as it's been in a long time.
And I watched the Wisconsin game the other night a little bit, Ironhead.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to them. My Lord. I mean, they barely. I mean, I know it was a late touchdown against Army, but you only have a 13-point lead against Army late in the game. That's just crazy to think about. So, I just don't know what went down with Wisconsin this year. We shall see, I guess. But but could they have that game where they actually play great? Play the way they expected and beat Iowa? I mean, I think Minnesota's playing really well right now. May have a chance of beating Iowa. I think Minnesota may have a chance to go to the Big Ten title game.
And there's a couple things I want to throw out too. The James Franklin rumor mill is once again cranked up between USC and now LSU. There is all kinds of speculation, as there seems to be pretty consistently on the national front regarding James Franklin and where he may be headed. Here is the one thing. And again, just try to look at it objectively, is if James Franklin, and he's talked about this a couple of times, that he does, he wants to be the first African-American to win a national championship in college football.
Head coach.
And it is, yes, as a head coach. And it is something that I do think is a motivator for him and a driving force. And there's no doubt in my mind that both USC and LSU can throw more money at James Franklin than what Penn State is willing to. I don't know about able, but than what Penn State will. But I don't know that it's substantially more. And I don't know that either of those places, I think James Franklin has proven he can win anywhere. But we've been talking, Goon, for a while about, he has a lot of things lined up very nicely here at Penn State right now in terms of sustained success. And USC, to me, if you're comparing USC and LSU, and I know he has the roots in the SEC, but to me, if that is your overarching, and let's say money is equal between USC and LSU, or very close. To me, right, USC would be the clear place to go because it is an easier path. I think people are making too much of it's easy. There is not an easy path to win a national title, folks. But yes, do I think it is more likely that you will go undefeated and with the talent that James Franklin can recruit? The path to an undefeated season is certainly much easier, and you can see happening much more quickly, at least I can, at USC than you can at LSU.
I agree. You're talking about rumors, by the way, about Franklin? Somebody just Google search rumors about Ed Ogeron's stuff he was doing. I've just been getting texts here and there, and I'm like, oh my God, Ed. That's just it is what it is. Let man be a man, but whatever. But yeah, that's just insane that a guy is in that position acting like that. If it's true, who knows? But you're 1,000,000% right with the whole LSU versus USC. What's the easier way to go undefeated? You go Pac-12 versus SEC. I mean, there's really no difference right there. I mean, UCLA is an up-and-coming team. Oregon is always going to be Oregon State. Arizona State with Herm out there, they seem to be flatlining out there. I'll tell you what, the best team in the Pac-12 is Utah. I mean, to think about that, they're third, fourth year in the Big 12 or in the Pac-12, and they're pretty much beating the hell out of people right now.
Well, and the other thing is, listen, there are a variety of factors that go into any coach's decisions. Again, to me, looking at it just objectively, and we've seen a lot of coaches make moves thinking that the greener pastures were there, and it hasn't worked out. And I'm not sitting here predicting one way or the other, and I hope we never have to find out as Penn State fans. How long it takes James Franklin to build somewhere else, because I just soon see that he
put that in the equation. Do you think that it's easier to win what he has at Penn State going right now, USC or LSU?
Well, and this is the thing. So the argument for him leaving, if that is the ultimate objective, and again, I take money out of the equation, which you can never do, but take money out of the equation. Again, USC does make the most sense, right? Because in the Big Ten East, and I do think James Franklin has things set up beautifully here. I mean, I really do. The recruiting has been phenomenal. And again, he's he has his best class yet coming in, and the class following, early indications are is going to be right there with it. So that, I mean, you're putting together a powerhouse program for, again, sustained success, which he's already had.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things. But you still are competing against, again, Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, not to mention an improved Maryland and Rutgers.
Yeah.
And those are the two programs that most dearly want to beat you each year. I mean, those are the two, so that, it's not like there is an easy path to a win in the Big Ten East, period, right now for James Franklin and for Penn State. I don't think it would take him long to get USC turned around. And truthfully, I don't think it would take him long to get LSU turned around. But again, it would either be, would he be able to get to a point where he could win a national title any more quickly at either of those? And I think it would be debatable with USC in my mind, because again, I think Oregon, UCLA, and Utah are the programs that he has to immediately worry about. I realize Arizona State's had some success, Washington not, but I'm telling you right now, you put James Franklin at USC, they're surpassing Washington, they're surpassing Arizona State in terms of a destination for kids in the Pac-12. And I think, Oregon, because of all it has to offer, is still going to be a viable option. I think UCLA at the moment feels like it has some momentum going. But again, you bring James Franklin in there at USC, and I think UCLA once again takes that back seat to USC.
With all that said, it's going to be one hell of an offer to get him out of here with what he built here.
And so here's the other part of it to me is, okay, so you take that USC job, and again, my suspicion is that James Franklin would have tremendous success and would do very well at either LSU or USC, but nothing's ever guaranteed. And here's the thing. Yes, either one is going to be putting together a substantial package. He's to get him out of here, I think you're talking about at least a top 5 paid coach in the country, and probably a top 3 paid coach in the country to get that
for
deal
a long
done.
time.
Correct. Here is the thing, if you're James Franklin, then I think you also need to weigh those. So with that comes the immediate pressure, though. And if you are not in the college football playoffs within 3 years, right, there are going to be folks in that fan base asking questions. Now, listen, you're going to get paid handsomely so that, and James Franklin is not lacking for confidence, so it's not as though he's envisioning going out and things not going the way he wants them to go. And there's no reason, again, for him to have a mindset other than that. But if you are looking for long-term security, stability, opportunity to raise your family in the same area, right? I mean, Penn State, James Franklin could have. There will be fans calling for, I get it. I mean, we had fans calling last year for crying out loud. So there will be an element of the fan base, I understand, that, as soon as there's a hint that Penn State's not going to be 10-win seasons, and there are fans right now, so why you can't get them over the hump. I mean, so you're always going to have an element of your fan base. But what I'm telling you is James Franklin could struggle the next 5 years at Penn State, and he couldn't really because of what he has coming in. But in theory, if it does drop off the cliff here for some unforeseen reason, he has 5 years at Penn State, regardless. And I do think there's something to be said for that. I don't know what in the overall scheme of things in today's world, and again with his success. History of success, there's no reason for him to think that he won't go wherever it is. And get the money and be able to have wild success that will lead to even more money down the road and even more success. But it is going to be interesting, and I do think it's going to be a concerning offseason here for Penn State. And I do think there is concern. I don't think it's great because, again, I do think there's good leadership and maturity on this team, and I think James Franklin has his kids right now buying all in that that this is what it's about right now, focusing on this season. But when we get to this offseason, I do think there will be some concerns, and I do think Penn State has to at least be quietly, privately putting a list together of, all right, if this happens, we need to be ready to move quickly with whatever we think is a good splash hire that will keep us in the mix. Because you cannot, you cannot get caught flat-footed.
That's our MO. Penn State's MO is being way forward-thinking. Come on now.
But I'm just telling you that they right. I mean,
they better have a list, yeah.
Because if you drop back a half step, right, you're going to fourth or fifth in the East Division.
Yep.
So again, I'm not trying to worry anybody. I'm not trying to.
I have one thing
up major concerns.
I do want to say though,
but I do think both LSU and USC are going to make significant plays for Franklin. I do think right now they are looking at Franklin, and obviously I have no inside info, but how could you not be looking at Franklin as a top coaching candidate if you have an opening at a top-tier school right now?
The only issue I have in this whole situation is, okay, business is business at the end of the season. I get it. When USC opened up a month ago, I wish James had just said, we will talk about this in the offseason.
Yeah.
He should have nipped it in the butt. Otherwise, we're not talking about it. No one's talking about it. Let the LSU, let the USCs talk about it. That's fine. They can bring his name up. But every week he said he asked that question. He's going to go through it again this week. Oh, well, USC's open. LSU was open. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He just needs to say, but he won't do it. I guess he has to play the game. It is part of the game. But he has to, there is interest there. He can't lie about it. I mean, there has to be. He's a business person first before he's a football coach. I mean, that's the bottom line. As they all are, not just James. I mean, every coach has to worry about himself, and his family. That's it. So if he needs to go down that route, and that's fine. I understand it. But I wish that he would have done that when the USC situation came up and just got it out in the open and just said, it will be talked about in the offseason. I'd rather not talk about it then, but he didn't do that. It's just going to keep festering and coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up. So, us media people have nothing else to talk about. So we got to talk about this crap. So, and it is. I mean, we were so blessed here for 50 freaking years. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I tell this story constantly of like everybody I know in football. Like, I could talk to a guy. Let's just say. Mike Reed, Mike Reed's roommate, I don't care who, Peter Pickabutt from the 1969 Penn State Illini team. He doesn't know who I am. I don't know who he is, but me and him had the same freaking experience at Penn State together because of all the people that coached us and all the people that were working here and this and that. This is why we were so special and so different for so many years because of Joe and the loyalty of the staff and stuff like that. So, the guy would come back 20 years later. He walks in, the first people you go see is the strength coach. You go see Spider, your position coach, and then you stop by and see Joe. We had that.
Yeah. It
was so nice. I mean, I know guys who went through 4 head coaches, and then since their college career, there's been 8 coaches there. And it's just like, how are you supposed to go back there? Okay, Brett Bielema. I respect the hell out of Brett Bielema as a coach. I think he's a very good coach. I think Illinois is a very well-coached team. He has great assistants and this and that. But like somebody who played at Illinois in the 90s, does he feel a kindred spirit to Brett Bielema when he comes into Illinois? And it's just a weird dichotomy that we were so set apart from for years that we're into it now. We are knee deep into the real business of college football, and we have been since 10 years ago. This coming week or within the next 2 weeks. So we dealt with this. We've had to deal with our coach being courted in the offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 1978 with Joe going to be the New England Patriots head coach with ownership on the team. I mean, that he didn't. We never heard that in the 80s and the 90s and in the 2000s because he wasn't going anywhere. People knew he wasn't going anywhere. But we entered the business, the ugly side of college football when, Joe went away and we, bring coaches in. And again, we have 2 coaches in the last 10 years. That's not a bad. I mean, how many schools can say that?
Yep. No,
not many.
Given that you're correct.
The way the people, I mean, I can't believe Ed Ogeron. Granted, there's other stuff that we're hearing about some off-field incidents and that, but he was 8-8 and won he's been 8-8 since they won a national title. And he's lost 8 games and won 8 games since then, and he's done. I mean, that's how fast it could happen. That's how fast a fan base could sour.
Yep.
I mean, especially down in the SEC. I mean, Auburn, Chiswick was down there, won the national title, and then he gets run out of town. It's a weird world, but we're Penn State's driving right towards it right now.
Yeah, and again, there's much like the season and the playoff prospects, that there's a lot of variables that we don't know in terms of how this thing may or may not play out at the end of the day.
Either way, James is going to get paid. Either USC, LSU offer him, and if they do, Penn State's going to come to the table.
No question.
I mean, that's the bottom line. This is the ugly business side of college football, and we are knee deep in it. And people don't understand the way it is. They still see it's 1989. They still think it's like that, 1999 or 2009, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? They're going to see, well, James Franklin got a $25 million bonus. What? Are you kidding me? They're going to be flipping out and this and that. And it's like, hey, man, look around the country. There's 105 college football teams, and then 50 of them have guys like that who make it. It's just, it's an ugly, ugly, ugly sport that we are not used to as Penn Staters as of yet, in my opinion.
No, and again, if you are going to be competitive in this world, like it or not, you do have to play the game.
Absolutely.
If
you don't play the game, there goes James Franklin to USC or to LSU, and then who do you have coming in? You're rolling the dice again.
Well, and it is why it is going to be interesting to see kind of how Penn State and like the Board of Trustees handles everything with the Lash building renovations, and
that's a huge thing.
It is, and again, I'm one of those, and I'll freely admit that I'm going to contradict myself here, because I do not like the keeping up with the Joneses mentality, and I don't think you should need to do that. Because, again, old school, but what I think the process should be is that you should go out and get kids that want to bust their tail and prove themselves to you, and not give a rip about how fancy your office is or how fancy the weight room is. Just, do you have enough weights for me to lift so that I can get myself stronger and more mentally and physically prepared? That being said, I don't want to be the fan of a program that's consistently 6-6, or even like Nebraska now. I don't want to be rooting for a team that is consistently 8-4 or worse.
Yep.
It's just not as fun, right? And listen, for Penn State to, I do think, unfortunately, that for Penn State to continue to compete with the Ohio States and try to compete with the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world, man, you better be putting in the investment that those schools are, or be willing to accept that, yes, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be like a in Major League Baseball, being one of the long, you can still do it, but man, you cannot miss. And you're going to be doing it here and there, not competing every year the way the Yankees can. And I don't mean competing for a World Series necessarily, but competing the Yankees every year begin the season thinking that they should win the World Series. I get that it's been a long while, and I'm not getting into the debate over the finances of baseball. But what I'm telling you is that organizations like the Royals or the Pirates or the Twins they're not thinking every year, all right, we better be competing for a World Series this year. They are thinking, over a 5 or 10 year period, let's get a team that we think can make a run, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're the Pirates, then you just want a team that can make the playoffs. And then
what else? What's what you just said about there's no dipping your foot into keeping up with the Joneses. Once you went in, you're going in head first, and there's no way of pulling out and saying, "Oh, we're not going to do that." Now we're going to dabble here a little bit, but then it's either you're all in or you're not in. That's the bottom line when it comes to when we are already in because what we paid our coaches in the last 10 years and the off season, and we're seeing the business side of sports right now. As Penn State, like I go back to when we were spoiled here for 60 years. There's no doubt about it. No one can deny that. But there's no dabbling in keeping up with the Joneses and then saying, you know what, we're gonna pull back here for no, it doesn't happen.
And listen, one of the I'm really curious to see, as we've talked about many times, how everything kind of plays out over the next. I was going to say 10 years, but really over the next couple of years, even. I don't know how many people are aware, but like Penn State is charging parking now for the non-revenue sports, and it's $10. I mean that's substantial for fans that are used to paying nothing, right? If you're paying $10 for each event, and a lot of the fans around here are used to going to, right? We have a lot of fans. Older fans in particular who have retired here who like to go to a women's soccer game on a Friday night and a women's volleyball match on a Saturday, and like going to women's gymnastics over the winter as well as a wrestling match and a hockey game and what have you. And if you're going to 5 events a week, again, you're going from $0 to $50. If you're going to 2 events, you're going from $0 to $20 a week just on the parking. Mind you, concessions and everything else continue to go up, and the ticket prices continue to go up across the board as well. And I don't know where that point is, and I'm sure it is something that Penn State is watching and monitoring. And I don't know what the effect has been, if it's had a deleterious effect at all yet in terms of the attendance for these other sports. And I don't know at the end of the day, deleterious
over here.
Thank you.
How come Booch gets I end up over here? Booch gets a high five. I give you the same tap.
No, I was on the. I was dialed in for a moment. Here's the thing: if doesn't matter, right? If you're Penn State, at the end of the day, again, you're going from $0 in parking revenue to if the attendance for a field hockey game drops from 1,000 to 200, right? Your revenue still went from 0 to 2,000, right? And at the end of the day, it is football that drives all of this. And if there is a little extra money coming in from these other sports, again, I don't know that the university, and I don't even know that they should. I mean, I'm to your point, we're looking at the the cold, hard reality of the business aspect here. I don't know at the end of the day that Penn State, would Penn State, listen, Penn State would love to see all of the venues filled all of the time. But if the question is, can we get some revenue in from parking and attendance drops by 60, 70% at all of these other sporting events, do you care if that football program is pulling in the revenue? It is consistently a top 10 program in the country, and my guess is no. And I'm not even necessarily sitting here arguing that Penn State should be caring about that, because again, for those student athletes, whether field hockey has 100 people or 1,000 people in attendance for those home games, whether or not there is a field hockey program with scholarships is dependent solely on what the football program is pulling in. And that's just the reality of the situation.
With all this being said, I really think that our fans, we have the best fan base. There's no doubt about it.
I don't.
We've been a little.
Disagree
you can say
at all.
they're a little tight, but I think that people, if they realize the money is going towards athletics, towards salary, scholarships, and that, I think they're okay with it. Is that going to be decided where that money goes from the field hockey parking? Women's soccer, where's that money going to go? Is this going to go into a kitty or stuff like into the athletic department?
Know. I'll have to. I'm not even sure it goes to the athletic department, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I'll do.
Wouldn't surprise me. Would it surprise you if it goes to some whole other division of Penn State and from the same circus tent, but yet we still?
Yeah. Well, and that's another entire discussion sometime.
I can sit here for an hour with you and just complain about the services of Penn State and what we rent versus what we own and why don't we own and why do we rent, like stuff like that. But it is what it is. I mean, they're smarter people than I. Obviously, you with your big words, delicatessen or delicatoire or whatever you were saying over there, buddy. No, but I mean, we are in a different stratosphere now. There's no doubt about it. You're a $100 million operation. Now we are dealing with the cold, ugly side of sports, and it is the way it is.
And here is
if you think about it, to put this into perspective, not even Nick Saban. Just say Auburn's head football coach goes to the board of trustees and offices and says, you know what? I need a $50 million renovation of this building and $50 million more on this and that. And they're going to say, what else do you want? Or Penn State's going to say, well, what if we give you $1 million for 50 years? Can you do it? That type of thing. It's like, again, you can't dabble in it. If you are going to do this and you want to stay in the top 10 and be relevant like we are, it's going to cost. I mean, people need to come to that. They need to convince themselves of that, and not convince themselves of that, but they need to realize that this is the way it is. I mean, it's crazy to think about, and that's how it is. Again, we've been spoiled for so long that I think people's eyes have never been opened up, and now I think they're being awakened right now, and they're mad. But it's like, don't be mad. This is the way it has been. We just had it very special for a long, long, long time.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. We'll take a break here, and we will be back to wrap up shop for our Tuesday edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. We're coming to you from Quaker Steak and Lube and State College, and we're back after this.
Lion Country Kia is offering exceptional deals on your new Kia during Kia's Command the Season event.
We have a nice selection on the 2021 Kia Sportage with various options and prices as low as $26,800, saving you $3,000. Or if you demand big power and towing capacity, slip into one of the 2021 Kia Sorrentos available on our lot, starting at $32,680.
Discover why Kia drivers throughout the area come to Lion Country Kia or visit online at lioncountrykia.com.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent you?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Phil Pickles Tapper, and we say,
tell him Johnny sent you.
And remember,
just sharing stories here off air about
Ironhead taking his son to the homecoming game.
Well,
I used to roll that field out there.
Yeah, my 6-year-old went to the state high game on Friday night, and now just has a new passion. And it is funny what you know that your kids are picking stuff up from you, but you don't know it necessarily until you see it sometimes. So Sunday night, we're watching the Steelers game. Now, mind you, he had school the next morning, so he watched the first quarter and then was put to bed.
He was in his room. He was watching on his cell phone. Don't kid yourself, Ironhead. He's sick.
So,
cell phone.
But the entire first quarter, he's like, "Oh, come on, you gotta run!" And half the time, I mean, it's not even the right thing to be saying. He's getting excited over so plays and just wait, was that good?
That's awesome.
After a touchdown, but it's fun. But he was into the idea of yelling for his team and rooting them on, and it's just kind of fun to see that at an early age. Speaking of which, a very big win for the Steelers. I don't care how they got it. I don't care what you want to say about they just needed that win going into the bye week. And, we were talking about a little bit during the break too, but, that is why you pay. And you might not be happy about it as a Steelers fan that it's that kind of money. I'm telling you, TJ Watts earned it with that performance in overtime. I mean, it was remarkable. And that is, again, why you pay those guys. That you got to come up big in the clutch, right? That's why Patrick Mahomes is earning the money he is because he performs when it is. Yeah, you want consistent performance too, and he gives you that. But you really need the big plays in the clutch, and man, did he deliver, TJ Watts on Sunday night. And again, the Steelers
his first game back
did what they needed to. Yeah, and so now you have the bye week for the Steelers, and then to me, just an absolutely crucial game with the Cleveland Browns coming out of the break now. Because if you win that one, I think the potential is there, and I get it, it's the NFL, and you never count your wins, but there's a chance there to really build some momentum with the opponents the next few weeks after that Cleveland game, and I think get yourself right into the thick of the playoff race. That being said, I will tell you that and I despise the Baltimore Ravens. I despise everything about them.
Who's coming?
But man, I'm telling you that team is remarkable. That defense is legit. And listen, Lamar Jackson is just to that point. That is a guy that knows how to get it done when he needs to get it done. And listen, I don't think the Ravens are anything close to a lock. And I think there are still many teams in the hunt for the Super Bowl this year. But boy, the Ravens right now look to me to be as good as anybody out there. That is just a team that's playing really well. And by the way, the Tennessee Titans, I know Bills fans are going to be grousing about the way that thing ended, and that's a tough way to end it when you're just slipping on the field and you miss an opportunity because of it. But I do think the Titans are the team that nobody talks about as a Super Bowl contender that is most likely to get in there. Everybody talks about the Chiefs, and now the Ravens are a hot trending. The Chargers obviously have been hot, and the Bills have been hot. Yeah, I still think the Chargers, very rarely. I mean, I know some of those Patriots teams had seasons where you didn't have a flub in there, but most even Super Bowl teams have a week somewhere along the way.
Look at Tampa Bay last year. They had a catch on fire.
Yeah.
they were.
So, yeah, I mean,
team.
the Chargers to me are still very much a legitimate threat. But I just the Titans are a team that you don't. I mean, I guess you will now with that win.
They're tough. You're going to fight for everything you get from them. And
they
have a 6'5", 260-pound running back.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say is they're a team that can grind it out, right? Like all the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Bills, and I think the Bills can grind it out too. But those are all teams that wow you, right? The Titans don't wow you, but man, when you get into those cold weather games or the games where it is, the teams that make the fewer mistakes, boy, that Titans team feels like a team that can be, again, right there. I do think this is much like college football in the stretch run. I do think that this NFL season is – because, listen, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, right, they look – big time legit. The Cowboys have looked like a team to be reckoned with, and I still think they are and will be again in that mix. Obviously, Tampa Bay is going to be in the mix, but I think the 49ers. There are a lot of teams that I think are legitimately thinking, listen, if we can stay healthy or get healthy at the right time of the year and get hot, there's 10 to 12 teams that right now I wouldn't be shocked if they won the Super Bowl.
Lamar is undefeated in October, by the way, since he's been started.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. It is.
Two is, you'll probably take it as an insult as a Steelers fan. You know how the last 3, 4, 5 years the Steelers have been so pass happy that they negated the run game a little bit? Don't you see Buffalo going down that route right now? I don't really see Buffalo running the ball as much as they should. They're putting the ball in Allen's hand way too much, sort of like Roethlisberger the last couple of years. It's like you got to have a run game to trust on to open up the passing game. I mean, case in point, look at the freaking Titans. I mean, they have 2-star receivers and they got Derrick Henry in the back, and but it just seems like Allen's throwing the ball way too much for a team. I mean, there should be a better run game up there. They need to get a better run game if they're going to move on.
Yeah, see, I think that run game's there if they need it. I really do. I think that's a good line. I don't know. I still think as impressed, and I was very impressed with the Titans. And again, I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite or certainly not a lock for the Super Bowl this year in the AFC. But I do still think the Bills are the most complete team. I think they're the most complete team in football, AFC, NFC combined. Now, that being said, again, you get a couple of injuries at the wrong position. There's just so many things that go into getting to and winning a Super Bowl. But I really do think that Bills team is going to be a very tough out at the very least. And I think they have moved ahead of Kansas City, to me, as the most complete team in the AFC. Again, when everybody's healthy and all things being equal. Now, again, can any of about 5 or 6 teams, there's probably a couple teams that won't make the playoffs. That, if you were facing them, again, on that given
and the
game,
media is in love. Media's absolutely in love with Dallas right now. You tell me who they've really played.
I do think that defense
schedule.
Yeah, I do think their defense though is greatly improved. I'm not ready to sit here and tell you it's one of the great defenses in the NFL just yet. But man, I mean, it was awful last year, and I do think. I don't think he's the sole reason for it, but I do think Micah Parsons is a huge part of the equation because he changes. Obviously, he's a dynamic presence, but he also changes what the defense can do and what some of the rules of those other players now can be. Right? You get that, and it's the same. J.J. Watts T.J. Watts changes. Well, J.J. Watts does too, but T.J. Watts changes what the Steelers, the dynamics of what they can do and how they can use the personnel. Although I'll tell you that and Watts is obviously phenomenal. I will tell you, Cam Hayward to me is still the linchpin to that defense, and what he can
professional
do.
Football player.
Well, what he does in terms of occupying the middle, he is a large part. And listen, I mean, football is the ultimate team sport, and it's always complementary. You never have one great player and he just gets to do because he's that great. It's always somebody else is helping him to some degree, right? But I'm telling you, what Cam Hayward does in the middle does allow T.J. Watts to go out and have the success and be able to play the style of football that he wants to play.
2 words.
And Hayward is just, I mean, he is a man among boys.
Casey Hampton.
In the middle. Yeah.
I mean, Casey Hampton ran the defense for how long? Because he held 2 guys. Not held. He occupied 2 guys. And now you got to make a play. You know, and they don't have a quarterback. They got 2 guys on you, so you better have somebody able to make a play. So, you just said it. It's the most complimentary game. It's all dependent about team. It's all about teamwork. One guy goes rogue and does what he wants, they're screwed. You know, some guy in a pass rush. You're playing against Lamar Jackson. Well, you know, you got to stay in your pass lanes.
Yeah,
you got to. So you got one guy who wants to. Oh, I had it over here. I made a spin move out here. Then guess who's leaking right through there? Everybody's got to do their job, otherwise the machine breaks down. So it's a great game. It's a beautiful game, man.
It is. And
you go to Philadelphia.
I love it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens the remainder of the seasons. We'll talk a little bit more about the Illinois game on Thursday. Again, Nittany Lions and Illini, a noon kickoff.
Homecoming, baby.
At Beaver Stadium on Saturday. Yeah, we are looking forward to checking out the homecoming parade on Friday night, getting together with some friends and going up to that. And then, again, should be a fairly comfortable win on Saturday. And then we'll see.
Sure, baby.
Season, as it always seems to here in Happy Valley, comes down to a little meeting with the Buckeyes, and of course, presumably you've heard by now, 7:30 kickoff in Columbus that following week, which means the fans will have plenty of time to get themselves properly nourished
into a lather
in Columbus. So, but I.
Still bullish?
I am. I'm curious to see, you know, obviously I'll feel better about Penn State, much better about Penn State's prospects if a healthy Sean Clifford is taking the field in Columbus. But I am really curious to see not only who the quarterback is, but how Penn State handles it and how that offense looks this week. Because, you know, there's no guarantee, even if Clifford is back at 100%, right, you're always one play away. And I think the comfort level that I'm going to have for that Ohio State game, which is never great. I mean, no Penn State fan in the right mind ever is chalking up the Ohio State game as an automatic win, especially when you're going to Columbus. But I am really curious to see what Penn State does offensively and how I'm expecting both quarterbacks will see some time on Saturday, and I think part of what I was going to say, I don't think I ever spat it out at the start of the show. What I was going to say is I think James Franklin is going to be walking a little bit of a fine line here in truly not taking this game for granted, and I don't think he is. But I do think they're going to use this game to find out a little bit. My hunch is the fact that they're splitting the reps in practice means that there's not a lot of separation that they're seeing right in practice. And I think you want to see in an actual meaningful game, right, which of these guys can produce more consistently and at a higher level. And, you know, I don't think this game in and of itself necessarily is going to tell you that in terms of who can do it long term or who can do it against a defense the caliber of Ohio State's, but it's what you're going to have to go on, right? And I do think you're going to see both of these guys at least get an opportunity to run a series and see what they can do out there. And again, I'm just curious to see how they utilize the quarterbacks and how the offense responds again, I'm expecting both guys on Saturday. We'll take a long break and be back on Thursday. We'll see you at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock on Thursday. We'll be back here at Quaker Steak and Lube with another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. Until then, be good and be safe.
Lion Country Kia is offering exceptional deals on your new Kia during Kia's Command the Season event.
We have a nice selection on the 2021 Kia Sportage with various options and prices as low as $26,800, saving you $3,000. Or if you demand big power and towing capacity, slip into one of the 2021 Kia Sorrentos available on our lot, starting at $32,680.
Discover why Kia drivers throughout the area come to Lion Country Kia or visit online at lioncountrykia.com.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent you?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
Tell him Johnny sent you.
And remember,